Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 83 with Rebecca Holland. Happy holidays. Hello and welcome, my friends, to the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess Wicks. I'm the host. If you're new to the show, welcome. Hello. We're so excited to have you here. Wander Wealthy is a show that gathers together women who are open to talking about money, a rather taboo topic that is so important to become less taboo. Today on the show, I am joined with a very special guest and actually a very good friend of mine. Her name is Rebecca Holland, and she's actually been interviewed on the show before. I believe it was episode 45, but I will clarify that throughout this interview. Rebecca is a world traveler, a copywriter, a travel writer, and most importantly, and more recently, the founder of Curiosity Magazine. Actually, I believe it's a co-founder. She founded it with her brother, actually. Curiosity Magazine is a magazine for the conscious traveler. It's for those who want to know, really know about the world around them. It's possible and even easy to visit a place, see its sights, eat its food, have a great trip, and miss out entirely on the bigger picture. So Curiosity Magazine really focuses on that bigger picture, helping you get informed about the history, the politics, and the context of the actual place that you are traveling to. Rebecca and I talk extensively in this interview about the importance of becoming more conscious when we travel, understanding the history and the political situation, how your dollar can have an enormous economic impact on that place, and also an environmental impact when you are visiting places, especially those that are traveled to and pretty densely populated now because of tourism. We talk about that. We talk about her challenges and wins with getting a magazine off the ground. We talk about the money behind getting a magazine to get started and grow. And we also talk about her personal money situation, what she is currently spending, saving, and investing her money on and for. So like I said, Rebecca is a good friend of mine, and it was so fun to catch up with her because the last time we talked was 2 years ago, and we were mostly talking about how she does travel blogging and travel writing, and how you can actually, if you are interested in the world of travel writing, be able to travel for free or get paid to travel. But now we're really shifting our focus to talking about the importance of travel for those who are interested in it. And she even shares some of her best tips to help you become a more conscious traveler, but also, and I think it just goes hand in hand when you do more conscious travel, how you can save some money as well. So that's what I'm going to leave you here with, because let's just get into the interview so you can hear our great conversation. Here is episode number 83 with my dear friend, Rebecca Holland. Rebecca, welcome to the Wander Wealthy Podcast. I'm so glad to have you back on the show since we last caught up in episode 45, which has actually been over 2 years ago. I would love for you to tell us what you've been up to in the past 2 years and what you're doing in life now.
Great. First of all, I can't believe that was 2 years ago. Wow.
I know.
So let's see. So I think I was living in Chicago then, and since then I moved to Iraq for a while and did a bunch of freelancing there, and then moved back to Chicago, continued to freelance, and then also decided to start this thing called Curiosity Magazine. And that's pretty much been consuming my life for the last 2 years.
That's amazing. That was such a short, catch us up, but
yeah, I think I was just writing, and then starting this. So.
Yeah, and you just casually moved to Iraq and then did a short stint in India, and
oh yeah, probably.
I guess it's pretty obvious because you are a travel writer, so it's so funny, but the way we end up living seems so normal for us, but then to other people, it's like, no, you've literally traveled all over the world probably multiple times in the past 2 years.
That's true. It's like nothing is new because everything is the same, and that I just travel a lot and write a lot. But at the same time, yes, a lot has happened. I've gone a lot of cool places and written a lot of interesting articles and stuff. So a lot and nothing at once.
So the last time we caught up, you had been blogging on your blog, which was Curiosity and a Carry-On, and you've since transformed it I'm not sure if you just like cut out the blog and then started Curiosity Magazine, or if you did the transformation. Maybe you can touch on that. But now you have Curiosity Magazine. So I would love for you to tell us first the decision to transition from blogging to being like, I'm going to do a magazine now, and the purpose behind the magazine as well.
Mm-hmm. So blogging was never really like my thing. I wasn't that good at blogging, to be honest. I always wanted to do more of a magazine. I, had studied journalism in college and then had been freelancing for a bunch of other newspapers and magazines, and was always more interested in that. And blogging, while some people are really great at it, like I was just bad at doing it regularly or, just keeping up with it. And so it was more of a place for articles that I couldn't get published elsewhere or things that were a little more personal. But to be honest, I didn't really have that many readers and I just wasn't that good at it. So then I had always wanted to start more of a magazine with writers from all over and more kind of serious stories or things that weren't so much like personal blogging. And then finally decided to start that kind of while I was in Iraq last year, because there were all of these stories I was trying to get published, and publications were not really accepting them because if they were travel or food related, they were like, we can't really encourage people to travel to Iraq, which, like, fair. I get that for some of these bigger places, they don't want to be liable for that. But I was like, no, in northern Iraq where I was living is really safe. And, there's a lot of history and like beautiful hiking and travel opportunities and really great food. And I was like, someone should be like writing about some of the more positive aspects of Iraq, not just like war all the time. And so that was one reason. And then the second was that I felt like local writers were not getting that much of a voice. So again, in Iraq, all of these journalists from the US and all over Europe would come, and then all of these local journalists who write for all of the local publications there would kind of serve as their like fixers, they're called. So they would serve as translators or help them set up interviews and things for all of the American writers. And then the Americans would go on to get published in like the New York Times and all of these big places. And it was like the local journalists are just as talented and obviously have a lot more context and know a lot more about the place, but I felt like they weren't getting published. And I think in travel writing especially, it's important to have like local perspective. And so I was like, I'll just turn my blog into this magazine where we have local writers around the world writing about places that other travel magazines aren't really touching on, and also like issues aside from, like, I was so sick of writing top 10 lists about places and top 10 foods you should eat and whatever. And so, I thought I wanted more issues-based travel writing and stuff. So I basically deleted my old blog. It still exists, but there's no content on it just because I can't delete it with Bluehost. That's a long story. But so I basically kind of deleted it and started over. But I liked the Curiosity name and I liked my logo, so just kind of changed it to Curiosity Magazine instead of Curiosity and a Carry-On. That was a really long answer.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. There's so many specific areas of that I would love to dive into. But I want to start kind of uncovering the goal that you set out when you were building Curiosity Magazine. Because I know, as easy as we end up making the solutions that we get to, as easy as we make it sound like, oh, well, I just set this goal and then I did it. I know for you, it was a process. I would love for you to walk us through kind of what that process looked like. How did you start building out just even like the strategy or how you envisioned this magazine looking, and then how you kind of found help in certain areas if you needed help, and what kept you disciplined in order to see that process through?
Okay, so I kind of started to have the idea of it, like I said, in Iraq around last summer, not this past summer, but the summer before, and then moved back to the US, and then kind of was overwhelmed by it and was like, that's a good idea for sometime in the future, but I have, all of these other places that I'm writing for, and I do a lot of copywriting stuff as well. And so it kept kind of like being an idea. And then I don't really know basically I was like, I have to either do it now or someone else is going to do it. And I that will make me so mad. And so that was kind of impetus to just do it, even though I don't really think that I was ready to start it. But once I was like, okay, like this is when it's going to be, then it just so I set like July 1st, this is when we're going to launch. And so then, and I told a bunch of people. And so then I was like, well, now I have to do it. And I talked to my brother about it and he was like, yeah, I'll help you. And so that was really, really useful because not only did he provide a lot of assistance with like getting it started and with like, I mean, every little aspect of it he's helped with, but it also was someone to be accountable to, which was really useful. I'm not sure if I would have actually started on July 1st if I wasn't like, oh, I can't disappoint my little brother who's also helping me with this and is like probably more responsible with deadlines than I am. And so that was useful. And then we put out a call for pitches from writers saying like, you know, and I posted in all these writers groups I'm in and saying, we're looking for stories about this. And then we started getting like hundreds and hundreds of emails. And so then it was like, okay, now people are actually expecting us to publish stories. And so we have to actually build a website and get funding and stuff. And it all was like probably not as disciplined or organized as it should have been. It was just like, okay, this is the list of things we have to do and just, I don't know, we'll do them. And it was kind of done between copywriting projects and between other things. And then I, you know, also travel a lot. So that made it, probably I should have like stopped traveling and only focused on this, but I did not do that. And so I think that if I would be starting it again, I would probably devote a little bit more time to it. But on the other hand, like it worked out. So I guess it's fine. And really there wasn't that much to be done. There was like build the website, pick the stories. And I had a really strong like vision of what I wanted it to be because I had been thinking about it for like a year up to this point. And so once the idea was there, actually putting out an online magazine wasn't so much work. It's a lot of work now to like edit the stories and post them and keep up with all the emails and things. But in the beginning, it was like choose the first stories, get funding, and build the website, which I don't know, it's kind of a lot, but it also was not as hard as I expected.
I feel like it's always hard to get started. And you had mentioned like you probably weren't ready, but isn't that the case with everything? Like we probably aren't ready to do anything, and that's the perfect time to do it.
Right. And I kept thinking about it, and finally I was like, okay, I have to just do it. Otherwise I will never do it. And then I'll be really upset with myself. So.
And I love that your brother was a great instrumental piece of that to add that level of accountability, as well as being so helpful in the process and still kind of helping you run this now company, we could say.
Yeah, it's great. His name is Robert and he's the co-founder of it, and he has done so much from helping me kind of choose stories because I get overwhelmed. I'm like, there's so many good ideas that people are sending and I want to publish everything. And he's really good at being like, no, this is what we can afford and this is like, you need to step back from it. Like I'm too close to it, I think. And so he's really good at that part, and also just to like bounce ideas off of. He also writes for us and he's a great writer, and he does all of our like counting, which I hate doing. So actually you should probably talking to him for a money podcast, but he does all of the like keeping track of if all the writers have been paid and keeping track of all of like the spreadsheet side of it, that I'm like, I want to do the creative fun side.
So let's talk about the money. I know we won't get too much into like, what do your books look like? But I know that you went through the round of funding using Kickstarter, was it?
Yes.
So I'd love for you to tell us like how that process went for you. What did you kind of expect it to look like, and how was it in reality? And also touch on, I feel like it's really hard to ask for money, or maybe that's just me, but being like, hey, I have this idea, will you give me money? Sometimes you can feel a lot of resistance. So how did you make sure that you delivered the message of what this was going to be about, and whether you kind of faced that struggle that I personally would face?
Yeah, that was for sure the hardest part. It's incredibly hard to ask people for money, and especially to ask like family and friends for money. And I think when it comes to Kickstarter, those are obviously the people that you have to ask first. And so that was awkward at first. We started with a pretty low funding goal, which I guess helped. I was torn over if making it bigger would have been better, or I'm not really sure. But we started with a just enough to fund it for 2 months to pay for all of our stories, because I guess going back to the beginning about starting the magazine, it was really, really important to me that we pay our writers, because I think a lot of people write for exposure, and that has really lowered the quality of travel writing. So it was really important to me that we pay our writers. And so we started with a Kickstarter goal of enough funding for the first 2 months. And yeah, asking family and friends for money is awkward, but people kept reminding me like, no, like this is how you have to do it. And this is how all small businesses get funded at first. And like also people like the idea of it. And it's, it's not like you're just asking for money to go travel by yourself or something like that. Yeah, overall, I think it was fine. Like we ended up making our goal, which was good. It helps to post in a lot of like writer and other travel groups and kind of go towards the niche of people who would be interested in it. The problem is I didn't want to ask writers to fund the thing that would eventually fund their salaries. So that was also awkward. And so overall, for like a small amount of funding, it was much easier than I expected, and it went way better than I expected, and it got shared more than I thought. And I think people were like, okay, this is an interesting project, which was good. Now going forward from that, funding is like a little trickier because now it's more reaching out to brands and things like that, and more like traditional funding, and sales is not my strong suit. So I haven't really started with that yet. I'm currently funding it out of my own freelance salary, which is a problem. And so that's kind of the next step for 2019, is to start reaching out to more like traditional funding methods. Although we also do still have fundraising, which like if you go on our website, you can click donate here on the top right corner, and that's how we still pay for some of it. And we, talk about that in our newsletter, and we have gear people can buy, like t-shirts and phone cases and things like that. And we also have guides to different destinations. So there are a bunch of different ways that we have funding now, but it's still, there's always like a line between being pushy and salesy, I think, and then providing something people genuinely want to pay for. And so I just keep hoping that people see the value in the stories when they read them, and see that it's a little different than other travel magazines, and want to fund it on their own without me having to beg them.
Well, I think so. I think that it's such a new and different approach that is shocking that more people haven't been writing about it. But I guess, the popular magazines would be more inclined to write about what's going to bring the money. And obviously that's generally like talking about more of the really popular tourist destinations. And that gets me into kind of the next topic I would love to discuss, which is going back to the purpose behind Curiosity Magazine and why it's important for people, especially people who want to travel, or maybe people who do travel already and are open to seeing other parts of the world that aren't just their, resort, or going to the typical places in a country that they see online.
Yeah, it's really, really important to me that people know about the world that they live in and about the destinations that they're visiting. Most other travel magazines kind of run on the what to do, what to see, what to eat model, which I think is also really important. And I definitely, look up those things before I travel too. And those things are the most, searched, and so, which is why they also make more money. But if you are not visiting somewhere, you're never going to read that article. And so I think that it's important for me to have travel stories that are interesting, even if you're not going to go somewhere, or even if you're just sitting at home in like rural Wisconsin, where like my family's from, that you can still learn about the world and find something interesting in it. So that's one aspect of it. And then if you are traveling, I just think it's so insulting to visit somewhere and not know anything about the place. Like if someone came to the US and didn't know who our president was, we would be so shocked. And I know that's pretty impossible because the US takes up a lot of news worldwide. But if you visit even like Italy, people should know who the prime minister is, even though Italy is a really touristy place, and you could totally go there and know nothing about politics or social issues there and have a great trip. Your trip would be so much more meaningful, I think, if you say you're in southern Italy and there's the migrant crisis there, and if you knew about that, probably a lot of things that you saw happening would make more sense to you. Or like youth unemployment is really high, and I think like if you realize that and then you visit, probably a lot of small things just like make more sense to you. I think it's good context of the place you're visiting. So like this is an example I've used a lot before, but Barcelona, I was there last summer, and Catalonia was trying to secede from Spain. And there's all this street art everywhere. And if you're just visiting and don't know anything about the politics there, you're like, oh, this is beautiful street art. But if you do know something about the politics, then you can realize like, oh, a lot of it actually relates to this huge political thing going on. And it makes, seeing it more interesting. It makes your trip more interesting. It makes the conversations that you're going to have with taxi drivers or your waiter or anyone more interesting. And I don't know, it's just always better to be informed about a place. I think it makes your trip better, and it also makes you come across better as an American traveling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we also have, just like people traveling to America, a lot of people have these kind of like preconceived notions of what a country is like. And a lot of times it's because all you really know about it is what you see on TV, but also if you're reading some of these more popular publications that, do the top 10 lists, or even you just, and this is something that we'll probably talk for a while about, follow people on social media and only see like the Instagrammable spots, you get this idea of what that country is like without recognizing, perhaps the extreme poverty that's on the other side of that shot, or without realizing how your travel is actually impacting the area that you're visiting, the economy or the people there or any of that. And I think that's really important to know as a traveler, especially because travelers from the US do have a lot of spending power and they can kind of vote with their dollars, but they can also have these like wrong ideas of the place that they're traveling to and totally miss the boat on what is actually important to the people in that country or that city or town.
Yes, definitely. I have so many things to say about this. I don't even know where to start. So social media is a great thing in some ways. Like there's a lot of things that I save on Instagram when I see like restaurants and things. I'm like, oh, I definitely want to, go to that place next time I'm in that city. And in some ways, I think it inspires people to travel a lot and has a lot of good aspects. But it can also, over-tourism is a really big problem around the world in places like Venice or Dubrovnik or Thailand. I am blanking on the name of the bay right now in Thailand that had to be closed because it was getting destroyed. And in Dubrovnik, for example, I went there like 6 years ago and it was great. And then I went last summer and it was horrible and just so crowded. You're like shuffling through this group of people, mainly because of Game of Thrones and then also Instagram. And I'm not saying you should never visit there, but I think people should be really conscious of, these are really ancient cities that don't have the infrastructure to support this many people. Or like when it comes to places like Thailand or Australia, like their environmental impact is huge when there's tons of travelers visiting one area. And so not that you should never visit, but maybe you should spread out your visit to go in the off season or spend a little more time and not just stay in the most touristy areas. And so that's one aspect, is that I think a lot of environmental and like historic areas are getting destroyed because of too many people. And then the other is, like you said, not realizing economic impact. So Americans have a lot of money in comparison to a lot of other places. And so when you travel, like what you choose to spend money on, like say you're going to Cuba, if you stay at certain hotels in Cuba, you'll be supporting the government. Whereas if you stay in like guest houses or something, you're supporting people. So I think people should be really conscious about what they're spending money on, even if it's not the most like Instagrammable destination. And then the other thing is when you see all these photos of like pretty girls in front of like beautiful, like in India or something like that, I'm not saying you shouldn't take those photos, or that I haven't taken those photos either. That's fine. But then you should also realize that, like you said, like on the other side of that, there's a lot of poverty, and how you, on the one hand, it's good if people visit those destinations because it helps the economy overall, but you should also just be, again, conscious that like this is not an actual portrayal of what that place is like. And it's important that you also learn about the issues in that place and things so that you can spend your money more consciously and not just be like, oh, I need to go get this beautiful photo.
I totally agree, especially when it comes to that. I mean, we all want to get the beautiful photo with the volcano in the background. I think what ends up happening is you take that photo and you don't realize that that volcano is erupting and it's like ruining the town below it. Or it's not necessarily that you don't have to do this thing. Like this is what I say when I'm doing money coaching is it's not that you have to feel bad about wanting to buy a coffee at a coffee shop and take it to work, or like go to Starbucks every day. If you'd want to do that, go to Starbucks every day. It's just about being informed about the impact of your dollar on yourself. If we're talking money coaching, like how does that fit into all of your priorities? Are you informed about how that impacts the rest of your financial plan? And so when we're talking traveling, and I'm sorry to make like such a random money example, but when we're talking traveling, it's like maybe your end goal is to take this one photo, but enjoy more of the experience than just that. Because as someone now who lives abroad, or someone who, you have traveled so many different places, you can tell when people are just coming to like just take a photo so that they can talk about it online versus actually enjoying the area around them and getting to know the area and having at least just an understanding of their impact on that area as a traveler.
Yes, definitely. And I also understand why people don't always post those photos on Instagram, the less idyllic ones. But that's why if everyone could use Instagram the way that I wish they would use it, it would be like, sure, maybe you're only going to post the really pretty, beautiful photo of somewhere, but then like use the captions or your Instagram stories or something to like tell the bigger picture and teach people something about the area, or like show that you're kind of constantly trying to learn. And like, I get that maybe you only want to post the most beautiful photo, but like you can still take that opportunity to, I don't know. I feel like people should explain more in their captions or use their Instagram stories to like show all the other sides of a place. But that's obviously, I'm not going to police how everyone uses Instagram, but that's just, in a perfect world.
That's what the multiple photos is for. So put the pretty one on top and then flip through.
Exactly.
All right. Let's get into the tangible tips round, because I'm really curious to hear what your biggest tips are for people who want to travel without totally, first of all, breaking the bank, which I do feel like conscious traveling is a lot more affordable than obviously like just traveling to the most popular luxury destinations. So first, be a conscious traveler and do it without, going broke, because we are on a money podcast.
Right. So I think one of the biggest things that you can do to save money and also help the places you're visiting is just to go to destinations in the off season or like the shoulder seasons. So that, and to explore more of a region. So say again, you're going to, I think like Italy is just a good example because it's a really touristy place and there's a lot of people go there. So if you go to Italy, a lot of people do like Rome, Florence, Venice, or like Rome, the Amalfi Coast, something else, and they try to cover a lot of places in a short period of time. And I understand the impulse to do that because maybe it's going to be the only time you come to Italy and you want to see all the best things. But you will do a lot more for the local economies and have probably a more, I think, interesting and rewarding trip if you stick to a region. So say you really want to go to Florence, but then going to some smaller towns around there versus trying to get all the way to Rome or somewhere else. And so stay kind of regional and travel a little more slowly and go in the off season. But that's kind of one of the biggest things. Another one that's just, I guess this isn't so much about being conscious, but just money-wise, is you have to have a travel credit card. I don't know how I could survive without my travel credit card. I've gotten so many free flights because of it, or just other perks, and it like is 1,000 times worth it, and the number one travel money thing I think you can do. And then the other thing is just learn more about the place that you're going. So again, through reading things like Curiosity Magazine or doing your own research or things like that. Or once you're there to, talk to people, talk to your taxi driver, talk to the shop owner, talk to everyone, because the more local tips you can get, obviously people living somewhere spend less money than people visiting somewhere. And so if you talk to them, they'll be able to tell you like, oh, go to this bakery for this or whatever, and it's usually probably cheaper than the touristy place that you had in mind.
I resonate with that. And actually, I've gotten a lot of these tips from you before visiting Italy for the first time, and now I just happen to live here. But it applies all over the world. And like, you're right, the locals are not going to spend nearly as much as the travelers are. And like, one thing I remember you always telling me is, do not eat at the restaurants that are next to the tourist attractions. Like, just go for a little walk, get lost, and stumble into something that looks like it has no room for you because they probably have a basement and that's where you can eat it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, oh my gosh, I used to live across the street from the Vatican, and people would be eating at this restaurant right next to my house and next to the Vatican, and it just looked so terrible. And like, every time I walked by, it's overpriced, the pizza looked really bad, and people would be like, this is so amazing. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe it's better than like the food where you live, but it's also not the best in Rome, and it's so overpriced. And I just wanted to like yell at everyone there, like, just go like 3 streets over, and it's so much better. Right.
Well, and then you have like the Italian waiter just probably yelling at you back if you would do that, chasing you out of their place. Yeah, my rule of thumb is if I have to pay like more than €4, which is basically just $5 for a glass of wine in Italy, you're at a bad place. You should just leave. So check the menus. And the second tip that you had, I love, with the travel credit card, same. Like, I rarely pay for flights because I use my day-to-day spending to allow me to get those miles or those bonus points or whatever they're called. And additionally with this, I recently had an interview with someone about, spending money while you're traveling. And when you are traveling, it's really hard to figure out how to spend money in the currency of the country that you're traveling in. But if you have a credit card, and if they accept credit card, and your credit card is a travel credit card, it most likely comes with 0 foreign transaction fees. Right. So that way you can buy whatever you're buying at the lowest cost. They won't charge you any fees. It's just all you're paying is that currency conversion. So however much your dollar is worth in that country.
Right. That's a really good point.
Cool. Let's go to the money round. Really quick, just a couple questions about your personal finances. I'd love to know right now what you're doing with your money, how you're spending, saving, and investing it if you are, or maybe it's all going into Curiosity Magazine like you had mentioned a little bit, but fill us in.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm always spending my money on travel. It's like the number one thing that I spend money on. And with travel, I guess I also mean food and like unique food experiences or trying new foods, even in the US. And saving, I am trying to save as much as possible because I would like to quit a lot of my copywriting clients and focus more time on the magazine. So I'm trying to save for that. But at the same time, I'm also spending a lot of money on Curiosity magazine. So I'm not currently investing in anything. I'm investing basically all of my extra money in the magazine. Although I would like to start investing, and I know you're starting your course and I want to take it, but I think that, yeah, pretty much spending money on travel, saving as much as I can, and investing everything else in the magazine for now.
Perfect. Thanks for that little pitch for my course. Rebecca will be in there, so all y'all get in the course when it's up for launch. What is one piece of unconventional money wisdom that you believe and implement into your life, but other people might be like, what?
I mean, I probably spend more money on travel and food than the average person would consider acceptable. But I kind of think, I mean, I don't know if this is that unconventional because there are studies about it, but spending money on experiences is always worth more to me than things. So like I have a pair of snow boots and I don't really have any rain boots or any other, I have like snow boots and then nice leather boots. And so I'm in Michigan right now and the weather is terrible. And every day when I go outside, my boyfriend's like, why don't you just buy a pair of boots? Like, it would be so much better. And I cannot bring myself to buy the pair of boots, but I will happily spend money on, a great meal somewhere or something like that. So I think that's probably the main money wisdom that I follow. Like new experiences, travel and food especially, are always worth it. I don't know if that's that unconventional, but that's probably it.
I like it. It's just funny how we all have our own, perception of money and value and what our dollars are worth and how other people will think completely differently from us.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
All right, we're going to wrap up the show with the quick and dirty Q&A round. So first, I would love to know what is one non-negotiable money indulgence you refuse to cut from your budget, and you're not allowed to say travel or food.
Does coffee? I guess that counts as food as well. Probably books. I buy way too many books, and I know that I love libraries, and I think libraries are so important, but I always buy books because I have this huge library collection, and I want it to keep growing, so I spend way too much money on books.
Fun fact, you probably know this from your time in Italy, but Italians believe that the more books you have in your home, the smarter your kids will be. They don't have to read the books. It's just the belief that if you have more books, your kids are smarter.
I like that theory.
What is one small $100 or less investment that has helped you get ahead?
This is hard because for my job, I mean, writing, mainly a computer is the only thing I use, and that's expensive. Probably, I guess maybe my passport. I think that's around $100. Or I don't know if this counts because this is $100 a month, or it's actually $79 a month, but I switched to T-Mobile and it's the best thing that I've ever done, and it has helped me so much with, if you travel a lot, it's the best investment you can have because your phone just works everywhere in the world and you never have to worry about being lost or not being able to translate things or not being able to use Instagram or not being able to work on the go. It has changed my life, but that's, it's a recurring $100, so I don't know if that counts.
It's a good tip though.
Or maybe newspaper subscriptions. Those are cheap, and I think that you should pay for the news. So that's another one.
All right. Best tip for getting through the airport and onto your airplane hassle-free?
I think you just have to become really good at packing and, keep everything that you need to take out accessible. So, have your computer and your iPad or whatever else and your liquids on the top of your bag. Or I carry all of those in a shoulder bag or my backpack and then don't have to open my actual carry-on at all. And I just think that's the best thing you can do is just be a smart packer. Or again, get a travel credit card that comes with pre-check.
Yes, because when you go through security, you always have to take out a bunch of stuff. Take off your shoes. So just don't wear shoes that have laces.
Yeah.
If you can't slip them off.
Harder in the winter when you have to take off all your coat and scarf and everything. But
I know. But as long as you can do it quickly, then it makes all the other people happy.
Yes, exactly.
All right. What is your current favorite book? Favorite book of the moment?
I'm currently reading Essentialism, which is really great. It's so good. I think especially if you're starting a business of any kind, it's so useful. Even if a lot of the things I'm yeah, I already know this, but the way he frames it, it makes you really think and be yes, why am I not doing it this way? So it's just about cutting out all of the non-essential things from your life so that you can focus on, what actually matters, whether it's like whether you work for somewhere. Like he has a lot of examples of if you already work for a company, how you can be more productive and say no to things like meetings, or if you're starting a business, how to focus on which parts are actually crucial. And then as far as fiction, I think my favorite book that I've read recently is called Killer Angels, and it's about the Civil War. It's about Gettysburg, and it is so well written, and it's fiction, but kind of nonfiction. It's based on all of these interviews, or not interviews, it's based on all these letters and diaries of all of the people involved. So like Lee and Grant, and it's just kind of tells the story of Gettysburg from their perspectives, and it is so amazing.
I need to hit you up for a bunch of fiction books because I am starting to only read fiction before I go to bed and try to like not look at my phone at a certain time. My boyfriend and I have like a no phone in the bedroom rule now.
So do we? Yes, I love that rule.
So I need some nonfiction books to read before I go to bed. Otherwise, if I read like personal development or business book, then I'm like thinking about that and thinking about how I need to implement it into my life, and it just ruins it. Like doesn't help me sleep. Best free tool for making travel easier or better?
Let's see. The travel tools that I have. I think Google Translate is an essential. That, it doesn't come up that often where I think you actually need to use it, but when you do need to use it, it's usually because you really need something translated, and so it's really helpful. Or even for like menu items and stuff like that. Yeah, probably that. I use the Kayak app a lot, or Instagram. I know we just said all this bad stuff about social media, but I have found following a lot of like local writers in different places around the world, I have found a lot of really great recommendations through there.
That pretty much wraps up our show. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your travel wisdom. I am so proud of you with your magazine and excited for you. I know that there's so many big things coming down the pipe, and I'm just so grateful that you are willing to come on and talk openly and candidly about money and travel and share your personal thoughts about the world as we know it, the travel world specifically as we know it. So thank you. Now, tell us where we can find you, how we can follow along and support you and Curiosity Magazine.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you so much. This was so fun. You can follow me personally on Instagram at Rebecca Lee Holland, and you can follow Curiosity Magazine. It's on Instagram as curiosity_mag, or on Twitter as curiousmag_read. So those are the places. Or you can just follow the actual website at curiositymag.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's a wrap on episode number 83 with Rebecca Holland. If you guys want to get any of the links, resources, check out Curiosity Magazine, check out the books that Rebecca recommended, then head to the show notes. Go to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 83. You can also just click the link in your podcast player. Now, one quick thing before I go, I have recently just sort of soft launched my new program called the Invested Program. Until December 1st, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, December 1st to be exact, you can get into the Invested Program for 50% off. And then the doors are actually going to be closing until January, February, until March of 2019. So if you want to get in, if you're ready to start investing and get yourself started on this world of building wealth and really finally figure out what investing means, how you can build a strategy that you can have confidence in and stop being scared of investing, then you have to check out the Invested Program. And this is a great opportunity. This is the pre-launch phase. I have all of the modules uploaded into the program that you really need to start building your strategy. I have a couple modules that I'll be uploading throughout the next couple months before we officially launch the program, but you can get in at a 50% off discount and have lifetime access, and you'll be able to access those modules immediately once I do upload them. And the other reason why I'm really pushing this pre-launch for people who are kind of in my VIP community, so here, my Facebook group, and on my email list, is because I'm actually live investing my own money using the strategy I teach you in the program, so you can see it be put into play in real time. So from November through, 6 months, for the next 6 months, plus maybe more, I'm going to be investing $1,500 each month, showing you 2 different options to invest your money through 2 different types of brokerage accounts and show you exactly the steps that I take. And if, anything crazy happens in the news or in the economy or in the world, you're going to see how I handle that. And so you can, have someone to at least model and see the, just what it's like to get invested. So if you're not quite ready yet, you want to see how it's done, you can do that, or you can invest along with me using your own personalized strategy that you create through this program. So if you're interested and you're listening to this before December 1st, or technically before December 2nd, because remember, the discount code will expire on December 1st at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you're listening to this before then and you want to get into the program at this super great discount, then go to wanderwealthy.com/invested and use the code pre-launch. I will put it in the show notes just to clarify so you can see what the code is, but pre-launch will be the code and you will get 50% off the price. So you will get access to the invested program for under $100. It will retail at $197 when it is officially launched. So now is the time to get in if you're ready to start betting on yourself, if you're ready to start getting invested and building wealth and at least get to experience that opportunity to build really great wealth in the future. So wanderwealthy.com/invested, use the code pre-launch at checkout and you'll get 50% off until midnight going into the December 2nd. It's always confusing when you say like midnight of a day because then it's hard to tell. Anyway, you guys get the picture. Again, I'll put it up in the show notes so you can get access. And that is all for me. So I hope to see you in the program. If not, you can always send me an email if you have any questions about the program. TessLWicks@gmail.com will get you to me, and please ask away. I'm so open to any questions because I want to make sure it's the right fit for you. And I really hope it is because this is a great program. I'm so excited, so proud of it. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I hope you are all having a wonderful Thursday or whatever day you're listening to this on. And remember, go out and wander wealthy.